We're thankful to be joined by Paul Gallant of ESPN 97.5's The Paul Gallant Show to talk everything Cougs after this massive win and now getting a seat in the Final Four. Paul, what has stood out to you in this Final Four run for Houston?
I'd say specifically this weekend that the Cougs were able to survive and advance without awesome play from their two best players. Juwan Roberts dealt with foul trouble in both of the games this weekend. And then on top of that, LJ Cryer was not shooting the lights out like you hope for from him. Their depth, more than anything this year, is a strength that they just haven't had in years past. And of course, we saw them lose the last 2 years that they were in the Sweet 16. So now they're in the Final Four, and we have seen other guys step up when those two have not been at their best. Now, in the Final Four, with all 4-1 seeds left in the tournament, they can't afford for those guys to not show up. But that's what I'm most encouraged by, Zach.
Now, what do you get for being one of the best defensive teams in the country? Now you're going to get to play one of the best offensive teams in the country in Duke, who has Cooper Flagg and obviously a lot of weapons. As we take a long view to Saturday's matchup, what are your first impressions?
Look, they did get fortunate over the last couple of games. I think playing at Lucas Oil Field, which is a football stadium, made it a little bit difficult for both Purdue and Tennessee to shoot. Then you factor in how good the Cougs are on defense and how awesome they are at rebounding. And neither of those teams, if they were on an off night shooting, which both of them were going to be able to ultimately win that. Obviously, the Purdue game was very, very close. But Duke is a team that scores. Duke is averaging 91.75 points a game in this tournament. And, the Cougs, they've only been scoring in the 70s. They're allowing 56. All of those things are great, but you are really going to have to play a level of defense against Duke and the best player in the country in Cooper Flagg that they have not had to play to this point.
And one of the other points I think that's important to make is that they can't go on these runs against Duke, a team that's so talented offensively. They can't go on these runs where they're going minutes without scoring. It's very difficult to close the gap against a team that's very talented offensively like Duke is, even if you play great defense.
Yeah, and there's been a couple of stretches the last couple of games where the Cougs have just stopped scoring. Right. And yeah, a team like Duke, they are going to pounce on that. They're going to have to play probably their best game of the tournament this coming Saturday. I do think it's possible. This might be the de facto national title with how good Duke is, with how deep the Cougs are. So we'll see what happens. I'm very excited for it.
And that's a great point. It could in fact be the de facto national title. Now, Houston's defense has obviously been their calling card all season, but what do you see as one of their X factors going into the Final Four?
Got to be Kelvin Sampson. That play that he drew up at the end of the game against Duke, man, what a beautiful play. I mean, to have the guy who inbounds the ball, sneak underneath the basket for a wide open layup, and hey, you can blame Braden Smith on Purdue for losing his guy, but Milo Suzan just stands underneath it, puts it in, game blouses. It was fantastic to see. Kelvin Sampson, I think, is the best coach left in this tournament. Obviously, things have changed for Duke with no Coach K anymore. I think that is the X factor that if we're comparing them to all the other schools that are left, I think that is something that they have in their back pocket that gives them an edge over all three of the schools left.
And Paul, that play that Kelvin Sampson drew up, that is going to go down in infamy if they are to win this Final Four game or even perhaps win a national championship. We'll have to see how it all shakes out on Saturday in San Antonio. All right, the Astros with an off day on Sunday, and we're back talking baseball with ESPN 97.5's Paul Gallant, and we're joined by a very special guest, our KHOU 11 baseball analyst. We're adding yet another title to his resume. He is your baseball insider. Isn't that correct, Paul? Jeremy Booth.
Front office insider for ESPN Houston, and now he is on our television with us. How about that?
Well, without further ado, let's get to talking about those Astros. They are 2-1, but maybe some signs of things that are both good and bad. First of all, the Astros offense, they've scored 6 runs in 3 games. Is this a sign that the offense is not going to be as potent as we may have thought coming into the season? Paul, why don't you start us off?
I think you got to look at one of the statistics for the Astros right now because it seems like an anomaly to me. They're 1 for 17 with runners in scoring position, and they have left 20 guys on base through 3 games. What are the odds that that is going to continue at that rate? I like what we have seen to open up the year. I think that we have noticed the Astros are a lot more patient at the plate. We have seen Isaac Paredes draw a couple of walks. Jose Altuve is doing well at the top of the lineup. I think if the Astros listen to the mission plan for this year, which is, hey, we're going to actually take more pitches and force longer at bats, I do think everything's going to work itself out. But you are right. This is not the best start.
Yeah, and maybe this team going to have to do things in a little bit of a different way this season. Jeremy, I know that's something you and I talked about on opening day.
Yeah, the first series has been indicative of what I think this team's going to have to deal with all year, right? I mean, whether they're going to win in bunches or have some tough streaks to, throughout the year. The 1-run, 2-run games, the minimal margins of error, that's what they're dealing with. And when you talk about leaving guys on base, that kind of goes hand in hand with being patient, right? It's one or the other. Either you can ambush fastballs and get good pitches to hit, or you take a lot of pitches and get yourself into tough counts. And you see a little bit of both. Right? So when you're turning that corner as far as what this club's going to do offensively, if taking pitches is the approach, and they're going to have to go ahead and win those type of games to get in the postseason anyway, it's just the opening series and not any cause for concern.
Now, the starting pitching has been excellent over the first 3 games. 19 innings combined from these starters, and they've only allowed 5 runs. So, is this a sign that the pitching staff is as good as Dana Brown said it would be?
Well, here's the thing with Dana Brown. You got to take everything that he says with a canister of salt. He says things that would make politicians blush. He promises a lot. Look, he's not actually out there pitching and playing. And, hey, I'll give him credit because some of the things that they have done over the last couple of years have been looking pretty good. This is an awesome start for the Astros, and they're going up against a Mets lineup that was above average last year, and it added Juan Soto, so it's a little bit better than it was last season. But, again, it is a 3-game sample size, so I don't want to get too excited and start planning the parade just yet.
And Jeremy, Lance McCullers looking good on Sunday. Is this something that Astros fans should be excited about?
I mean, the fact that he found the mound is probably a good start, right? I mean, it's been a rough couple of years, and he went out there, and it was about what it should be. It's also a short burst. This is a guy who there is a big precedent with role, and even here in Houston, it was Rich Harden, who pitched for a lot of teams and was on the mound for a period of time and was really good when he was, and then was not for a long period of time. And it's kind of that he's kind of that guy. Lance McCullers, if he has 3 or 4, maybe more, outings like he had today, then you might have something to help your bullpen. There is zero reason to rush him back other than whatever's going on with the roster time in the minor leagues and rehab assignments, whatever limits you're into there. There is absolutely no reason after all this time away to rush him back to Dyken Park, right? You want to just go ahead and see him attack and stay resilient and get back on the mound and do it again and then again and then again. After he's done that 7 or 8 times, again, you want to make sure he's going to be durable to do it. So it's a good start. It was a good sign. I think we got to pump the brakes on what that ultimately means just because of the history, but it was very encouraging. That's the way to say it.
Very encouraging. And speaking of very encouraging, I think a lot of Astros fans would say it was very encouraging seeing Jose Altuve in left field over these first 3 games. He had to make a couple of those decision plays, right? Calling off Jeremy Pena one time and then also making another catch in between left and center. Now, he's had 5 hits in 11 at-bats. Does this mean he's comfortable? Is this a good sign that he's going to stick there in left field for this season?
Very small sample size. I do like what we're seeing from him at the plate to open up the year because the Astros offense really hasn't done a whole lot to this point. I do think we have the point, though, at Saturday when Jose Altuve is going towards the left field wall. The Crawford box is at Dyken Park, and he's jumping for it, and he mistimes it, and he's also 5'7", and the ball goes over his head. I think we're going to see a lot of moments like that over the course of the year. And, of course, we had that adventure in the first inning of him in left field with he and Jake Myers. So, look, it's going to be at the very least a wild ride. Hopefully he doesn't screw up a lot this season.
Jeremy?
Looks like he's going to play some second base. That's the job. Okay. What I'm hearing is he's going to play a little second base against the Giants. And, whether that happens or not, we'll find out. Look, the bottom line is Jose Altuve can hit. That's it. I mean, that's really where it is at this point in his career. Is he can hit. He's going to lead off. He's still going to steal some bases. He's got to stay somewhat flexible with his body, with his age, with the balance of what that means at this point in your career. I still think he's our primary left fielder, but he's already starting to creep back towards the dirt here a little bit, and we'll see what happens. You got to remember, they got a guy that's not playing every day right now by the name of Mauricio Dubon, and if Dubon goes out to the outfield, you have yourself a Gold Glove defender at 7 different positions on the field, and if you put Altuve back at second, for all the reasons you moved him, it might put Rogers into a better role. Now, I'm not saying that's the move. I'm saying those are all options. And I think you're going to see him play some second against the Giants, and we'll figure it out from there.
Well, this guy has no doubt been the story of the first 3 games of the season, and that's got to be the rookie Cam Smith, who ends up making the opening day roster. He gets a hit on the first pitch of his first at-bat. Cam Smith mania maybe hitting Houston. I don't know if we have to pump the brakes on that, but have you seen enough to think that this guy is going to be able to handle himself at the big league level?
We're going to have to see more, but I definitely like what we've seen to open things up. First off, I mean, to get that monkey off of your back in your first at-bat, fantastic. Now, hopefully he doesn't have a slump like we saw from Alex Bregman when he first came up, from Kyle Tucker when he first came up. But also, we've seen him be patient. We've seen him draw walks. I like what I'm seeing to this point. Again, it's very early, but these are very promising signs for Cam Smith, who also to this point has not been a disaster in right field. But again, it's early.
Jeremy, I know we've talked about this extensively. Can he be the quote-unquote aircraft carrier that everyone talks about?
Physically, it's all in there. And after watching him for, Friday and Saturday, or I guess Thursday, Friday, the concern that I have with him is how much power he's going to get to with his approach, right? I'm not worried about his contact. I'm not worried about him swinging and missing a lot. I mean, the guys of old that come back to mind are Paul Molitor and John Olerud with a limited load in their hands, but their setup was way more conventional. His setup's a little bit dropped, and he's got to get in a position, and he just kind of hits from a position of raw strength. Now, that's okay with balls in the middle of the zone and four-seam pitches and balls that you're going to arrive on time with. And it doesn't mean it's not going to work. It doesn't, but it's not traditional. It's a little bit unconventional with what he's going to do in order to go ahead and get to the 260, 270, and 25 they're hoping for, which I don't see the 25 this year. I just don't. In order to get into that, there's a lot more he's going to have to do to get himself in position to drive the baseball. Right now, if somebody throws him something hard, he's not going to miss it. And they're going to supply the power, and he's not going to go ahead and match it. When you get into trouble for hitting home runs is when balls are kind of ambushed and run off the plate a little bit, and balls you can have pitchers get back to the middle of the zone with, and it's going to be a minute. But he's learning at the right time with the right place. He's got some experience around him. He's got some guys who can drive the baseball as well, and so he should get some pitches to hit. We'll find out. He's certainly not overwhelmed by where he is, and that was the start that you wanted to see, was that he could step into Daikin Park, be with the fans, be in Houston, and celebrate without celebrating that he was doing something very few people have done before him.
Yes, and Jeremy mentioning the other day when we were watching Cam Smith at batting practice, a kind of hit-first approach. So we'll see how it goes for the rookie. As for these two guys, Paul Gallant of ESPN 97.5's The Paul Gallant Show. And, of course, you know him, our KHOU 11 baseball analyst, and now the front office insider for ESPN 97.5. He is, of course, Jeremy Booth. Thank you both for being with us.
Anytime.
Yeah, man.